This is the introduction to my Ph.D. thesis. Introduction. Edmond Jabès was born in Cairo on April 16, 1912 and died in Paris on January 2nd, 1991. Forced to leave his native Egypt during the Suez crisis of 1956-57, he lived in exile in Paris and opted to take French nationality. And just when Nasser came to power in 56-57, all non-Muslim non-Egyptian nationals were forced to leave Egypt, including the Coptic people who were descended from the pharaohs. They had to leave Egypt. Many of them went to Canada. Jews had to leave Egypt. Any non-Egyptian nationals had to leave Egypt, even if they were born there and had descendants there. It was basically, if you weren't Muslim, you had to leave Egypt. Okay. During Jabès' lifetime after leaving Egypt, he published 26 books, mostly with the publisher Gallimard. In these books, he would pursue a relentless questioning of a God who, as an atheist, he did not believe in, but who nevertheless inexplicably allowed the Shoah to happen, the Holocaust to happen, and espoused a vision of the secular book as exploded and as infinite as the vast desert sands surrounding the Cairo of his youth. Ultimately, it could be argued, as this thesis does in its final chapter, that this notion of the book prefigures contemporary hypertext as invented by Ted Nelson, with its fragmentary nature based around a core set of keywords. Throughout Jabès' career, friendships with Maurice Blanchot, Jacques Derrida and Emmanuel Levinas, among others, colours his writings in what amounted to a field of mutual influence within post-war 20th century French thought and writing. In the thesis that follows in the book, I examine these disparate elements of Jabès' life and literary career in an attempt to uncover the essential features of his literary legacy. In Chapter 1, An Egyptian French Poet, Jabès' familial and literary origins as a young verse poet inspired by the Surrealists and Max Jacob are traced. Though Jabès would later retract much of his early verse, we can see in this first chapter the beginnings of themes and techniques that would recur throughout his more mature oeuvre. Chapter 2, The Book of Questions, takes a look at the 7-volume cycle of that name, which in many ways is the defining work of Jabès' career, tackling as it does such themes as the Shoah and the death of God. Chapters 3, 4 and 5 each examine Jabès' friendship with, respectively, Maurice Blanchot, Jacques Derrida and Emmanuel Levinas, going deeply into the shared themes and correspondences found in their respective works. In Chapter 6, The Jabèsian Book, I examine differing notions of the book found in Europe across previous centuries, from Leibniz to Mallarmé, and compare these with Jabès' ideal book. Chapters 7 and 8 of the thesis are especially devoted to an exploration of the Jewish themes found in Jabès' oeuvre. Firstly, in Exile in the Desert, The Wound and the Wandering Jew, the theme of exile, and in particular its Egyptian desert setting, is examined as it shows up both in Jabès' work and in its earlier biblical provenance, while in Chapter 8, Atheistic Judaism post-Shoah, the centre of a rupture, the character of Jabès' overall project is seen through the varying lenses of negative theology and apophatic theology on the one hand, and atheistic theology and Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, on the other. Finally, in Chapter 9, the possibility of adding Jabès' name to the list of literary precursors to hypertext is examined and argued for, as we see that the elements of textuality he favoured in his writing later turn up as basic constituents of 21st century hypertext, as invented and laid out by such luminaries as Ted Nelson in works such as his Literary Machines. Throughout this thesis, what is at stake fundamentally is the question of what constitutes the book for Jabès, who faithfully inquired into its nature more profoundly and extensively than most. We find that for Jabès, the book is not something that can be confined within its covers, that it is always straining beyond the printed page. What follows then is an approach to the Jabèsian book that fully honours what he calls its infinite exploded nature, while remaining faithful to the context, both in Cairo and in post-war Paris, that gave it birth. Thanks. Now, the trace, the face, the place, and the other is under the philosophers I discussed, Emmanuel Levinas, Jacques Derrida, and especially Maurice Blanchot. So that those are concepts in their philosophical work, and that's dealt with in the chapters devoted to those philosophers. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.